What's up, everyone? This is EJK here, and I know there have been some requests for kind of like what to do in the late game in TvT. So with that in mind, I was looking around for a bunch of, I don't know, example games to use, and I think I have found a good one. There we go. So the game I have here is from Legend, no, not Legend, from Journey. He is currently teamless, but he plays at the top of the KR ladder and he streams pretty regularly. He's also in the Base Trade TV, that big tournament, the big one or something. I don't remember what it's called exactly. So this is going to be Journey versus a very, very high level Mech player on the KR server. This is top GM, 100%. And it's going to be on Deadwing as well. I think the biggest crucial mistake that the Zerg, or not the Zerg player, that the other Terran player made was his expansion pattern was not very good compared to Journey's, and we'll see that reflected in the, or it's not gonna outright lose him the game, but what it does is it allows Journey to utilize his advantage and his game plan, or to push an advantage to make his game plan even stronger. And the game plan here is to, one, deny the other Terran player's bases for as long as possible, and two, make sure you stay one base ahead of the Terran mech player. Two, if you're on top of your game, Journey certainly had a nice chance to do that, and I'll point that out later. But those are the two big goals. It's to stay ahead of the Terran mech player economically by denying his base and taking your bases faster than his. And we see here, Journey, he's going to be opening up for the very fast Banshee opening. This is faster than the regular 12 gas because you're building the starport on top of the tech lab, so you don't have to waste those extra couple seconds to switch around the starport and the factory building the add-on. You actually have the starport there and you can start cloak immediately. This is a very greedy play because you only have one marine before you make your tech lab on the barracks, so if your opponent does a kind of like a 2-rex play or some sort of cheesy pressure play early on, then you might pretty much just flat out die. But because you're on a 4-player map, and this is a very big 4-player map, it's actually a safe build because it's just a big map and it's very hard to get lucky scouting first. Journey making a good luck for himself by, I don't even know what kind of English that is, but he got very lucky by scouting the other Terran player first, and because he saw the 2 Hellions and a handful of Marines, he knows that it's going to be a Marine Hellion drop. That's the only reason why you would have so many Marines and so many Hellions, because both of them are making units right now. So that's why he's not sending his Banshee across the map right now, and that's why his Banshee's scouting out. He actually does get to see the drop, so that's good awareness by him and a good decision making there. And he has that depot where the Reapers are supposed to come up. That's kind of annoying. Thankfully his Banshee outranges everything, so he's going to be able to micro around it, and even though it's going to cause an annoyance, he shouldn't lose the depot. And we see here, he's taking his expansion and he's making a Raven. He's not going to be doing much else with his aggressive opening per se. This Cloak Banshee, contrary to what a lot of people think that they're meant to do damage, the primary purpose is actually to scout. And what we see here is Journey, he's going to be scouting. He sees a tech lab on the starport, he sees reactor barracks, and he sees no tech lab on the starport, so he knows, or on the factory, so he knows it's not going to be super fast siege tanks. Journey's siege tanks are actually going to start beforehand, and he knows that it's going to be some sort of marine tank opening. So, I mean, he doesn't have to worry about Banshees either. Of course, he has a Raven and a Viking of his own, but for the most part, when you see like a Raven and then a Viking like that from the tech lab, you know that it's either going to be very delayed Banshees or it's not going to be Banshees at all. And we see him switching his starport to make 2 more Vikings at once, and he's also going for a fast third command center because he knows he's going to have the defensive advantage by having a higher siege tank count, so he's going to be a lot safer taking that third base, and there's really no risk involved at all. And he's going to be starting stim. It's a pretty fast stim timing in my opinion. He's cutting siege tanks for now because he's completely safe. You don't have to make units constantly, you just have to have the right units available. And what he's doing is he's spending his money in infrastructure and other things other than just units and SCVs. He scans here, he sees that it's kind of a weird thing to see. He saw, I'm just going to pause it to explain what he saw. He saw 2 Ravens, he saw a couple Vikings, and then he saw a siege or a factory with a tech lab, and then a lone tech lab, and then a barracks. So he doesn't really know what's going on, but because he saw the 2 Ravens, what he's going to be doing is he's going to be adding a second starport. I don't actually think he saw it right away. He does get to see it later on, but that's what's going to prompt him to add a second starport. And since these are very close positions, he's going to want to break down the rocks, if not to attack, then to prevent his opponent from sieging up behind those rocks and causing a really big headache. So that's why he's going to break them down as soon as possible, and then he's going to have a marine spotter there to spot for when the army goes along that way, because it is the shortest attack path to go through. And okay, he didn't see the 2 Ravens like what we saw in the beginning of the game right here, but he's going to see them very shortly. And 2 Ravens right here, that's very, very scary when they have that much energy. That's a lot more PDDs, that's a lot more Hunter Seeker missiles, that's a lot more auto turrets. So that's why he adds the second starport, because he needs to pump out Vikings as fast as possible and try to wear the opponent down, because if the other Terran player also has a Banshee and he has complete sky dominance, it doesn't matter how many Marines and tanks you have at this stage of the game, you're just going to lose because of your unit composition, especially if your opponent has siege tanks behind as well, so that your Marines really can't do anything to hit the Banshees. We see Journey here, he's going to be expanding now. He has that Marine, over here in the corridor, and he knows he's safe because he also has the watchtower and he has another Marine over here. So this third base is going to be the safer third base to expand to. And the one big mistake that the other Terran player makes that pretty much loses him the game and makes him fight with a huge downhill disadvantage is taking this base as a 4th base, or even taking that base at all, to be honest. Alright, we see here, he scans, he sees a bunch of Marines and he sees a bunch of tanks. Now, that kind of looks like a bio-tank build in TvT, so it's very, very, I think it's very good play by the other Terran player to not show his hand that he's going mech right away. Otherwise, Journey could have prepared a lot quicker for it and could have transitioned easier, like maybe take a faster 4th base, transition into sky faster. But as of right now, Journey does not know that it's mech going on. He's actually going to make like 3 more reactors on his barracks, and then he's going to scan, and right when he scans he realizes it's mech because he sees multiple factories, and then he's gonna be able to cancel those add-ons. Like those add-ons he just made, those are reactors, and then he's gonna make 2 more reactors on those 2 Raxes as well. So he thinks it's 100% biotank right now. And he has his little Skyforce. Oh, and it's very important to keep the Banshee alive, because the Banshee is what packs a big punch into this little Skyforce, and it's able to push back siege tanks. It's able to deal a lot of damage. It's the ground DPS for the Air Force. So it's very important to keep the Banshee alive. It's better to do like to do no damage and maybe force one scan out than it is to kill 10 SCVs and then lose your only Banshee. If you make another Banshee, that's alright. I guess as long as you just have one Banshee left over if you're going to be suiciding Banshees for SCVs, so that you can add it into your Sky Ball. So right now, he just made the reactors. He has no idea that this is Biotank. And the Terran player is very smart too for showing only Marines. But now Journey, he's going to be kind of a bit confused. I guess he just wants to double check what his opponent has. So now he sees that, okay, he's going for Mech. So he cancels those, and he's able to cancel those three reactors right before they finish, which is extremely fortunate for him. And he builds 3 tech labs instead. And now that he knows his Mech, he's going to be pushing out, and what he wants to do is set up a contain to delay the other player's expansion rate for as long as possible. And this is probably the biggest key to dealing with Mech, is that you need to have a better economy than them, because just from watching this game, and probably if you guys have watched a Villo's stream, if he gets up to that late game army composition, there's almost no way to trade cost effectively against it, and we'll see it happen in this game as well. But the one saving grace that Journey has is that he is able to have one more base ahead of his opponent, and as a result is going to be able to kind of starve his opponent out in a war of attrition. For now though, Journey, he's going to be doing a little poke-in with his medevac at the bottom right, just to test the defense. And what he's doing here is he's going to be kind of setting up a contain to pin the army back as long as possible. None of this is meant to do damage. Like this drop right there, it's not meant to do damage. Having your main army in the front, all he wants to do is to deny the 4th base. And so the Mech player is going to be trying to take the 4th base where Journey's main army is at right now. And what ends up happening is he isn't able to actually mine from that 4th base because of how easily abusable it is from siege tanks. So he's really going to only be on like 3.5 bases for most of the game. At least 3.5 base gas. I don't think he actually even mines a lot of minerals from it. And Journey, he's going to the Mech player, he had his 4th base already done. Journey's landing his 4th base. Right now, they're pretty evenly economic. This is a very even game right now. And we see the 4th base landing, or Journey does. He's going to try to snipe it. If he can snipe it, that's going to be really good for him, because he's going to be keeping the Terran player on 3 bases for a long time. We see here he's going to try to do another double-pronged attack. Well, he's just going to try to force the army out of position as long as possible. But this Mech player, he has very, very good positioning. And this 3 medevac drop is going to end up doing nothing, ultimately. What we also see Journey doing is that he's taking, as he's taking his 4th base, he's also going to be adding multiple starports on, and he's going to be starting to make an air transition. Now, what I also like about Journey's play is that not only does he add starports, he adds additional factories as well. So he's at 2 factories right now. And what he's going to do is he's going to go up to a total of 4 factories. I think that's pretty smart of him, because normal bio, like Marine Marauder, you can only force a base trade. You're not going to be able to attack your opponent face up in an engagement, and siege tanks will be able to inch away at your positioning and give the Mech player superior positioning. But having an equal number of siege tanks, or at least one to contest with the meching player, allows him, Journey, to be able to do this kind of a contain. And the Mech player, he's obligated to push out because he sees the turrets are about to be done. He doesn't want to be contained over here. He wants to try to break this before the turrets are up. He does get a good chunk of it away. And we see here that both players are transitioning into sky armies, and this is where it kind of gets scary and players start going like, what the fuck do we do against OP sky units? Terran's OP, nerf Ravens, Blizzard made a broken game, etc, etc. Right now, the Mech Terran player, His goal is going to be to try to trade really cost efficiently with the Ravens using Hunter Seeker Missile, and it's going to be doing some really good cost efficient trades here. Journey is able to capitalize that in this instance because the other Terran player does not have any more energy on his Ravens. It's very important to try to keep or attack when the energy of the Ravens is low, because then the Terran player can't just spam a bunch of Hunter Seeker missiles against you. So Journey was able to get good engagement there because he had a superior army, because the Ravens weren't able to actually do any damage because they were out of energy. We see here both players are on 4 bases right now, but this 4th base for the Terran player, for the Terran meching player, oh, and there's a 3rd and 4th factories going down, and I really like that. But this 4th base is going to be, Journey's going to find out that it's really easily abusable, and he scouts here. There's no 5th base for the Terran player, so they're on even bases, and they're both building up a sky army. They both have a pretty sizable, scary ground army that neither player can attack into. Now Journey, he's going to start to abuse this high to low ground area where the 4th base of the mech Terran player is, and it's going to prevent mining. Like, up until this point, it was a pretty even game, if not the mech player being ahead because they were on even bases. But now one of his gas is getting denied. He can't even mine any minerals at that 4th base either. So he's essentially down to 3.5 bases if you're just talking about gas, and even more, or he's still really only mining from 3 bases right now and a couple mineral patches at his 4th base. So this is where Journey's going to be able to take an economic advantage, and I think the best decision for him would have been to start to take another base here. He's on 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, he's taking his 5th base right now, and then maybe even take a 6th base. Just try to establish an economic lead. Right now, he does have an economic lead, so I can't really complain too much about the spot that he's in. So it's okay. He's doing good this game. And his objective, after he's gotten this contain up with siege tanks and turrets and sensor towers, it's kind of like a defensive spot for his air army to fall back on as well, whereas the other player has Thors and turrets to shoo away the air army from like just going over your shit and Hunter Seeker missiling it. We see here his 5th base finally established. I would like to see him just really expand a lot more. The Terran player, the mech player, he's only on 4 bases, well, like 3.5, and he still doesn't have his 5th base, so Journey knows he's in a good economic position. He wants to keep doing these kinds of trades so that he comes out ahead in economy, especially the Vespian gas. Killing those 2 siege tanks is a lot more expensive than killing a handful of Marines and Marauders. We see here, though, that the Mech Terran player has a very, very scary army. Both players using Hunter Seeker Missile and kind of just going away. So I was kind of studying how these engagements were going out, because I never really understood, what do you do with your Ravens? Like, okay, you just spam a bunch of Hunter Seeker missiles and hope you get lucky. Well, I think the more technical approach would be to use a couple Hunter Seeker missiles. You don't want to use up all of your Raven energy. That's very important, not to run out of Raven energy. But you want to use enough so that you have a good chance of doing damage against the other army. So like, not 1, not 5 maybe if you have a lot of energy, but just like throwing down a couple Hunter Seeker missiles, and that's what the mech player did. He did that, and he was able to weaken 3 siege tanks. If he was able to kill them, that would have been a very good trade for him. But he unfortunately wasn't. So right now, I guess just by looking at where this game is, Journey has a pretty good contain, and he has a base ahead of his opponent. It's almost 2 because the 4th base isn't mining. You can't really attack into the mech player. The 2 decisions that you can get when you want to attack a mech player is forcing a base trade or by starving him out. Those are really the only 2 options you have of being able to win the game against a good player who you cannot catch out of position. And this mech player has 2 sensor towers, he has a bunch of turrets. There's no way that any sort of aggression is going to work besides these kinds of attacks. at the farthest outs reaches of the Terran mech player's base. We see here this airball of the mech player is getting super scary, and those Hunter Seeker missiles are just so gosh damn cost effective. And that was just a good trade, killing 6 tanks for a bunch of energy. And now there's almost nothing left, so the Terran player is going to try to break out. I hate saying Terran player because they're both Terran players. We see Journey, he's going to be using his own Hunter Seeker missiles to try to get rid of the tanks. Tanks seem to be a pretty good priority because they are usually stationary when they're sieged up. So it's going to be important to Hunter Seeker missile things that you can kind of like get the best cost efficiency out of, like Hunter Seekering Ravens, Hunter Seekering Vikings. Notice how neither player, even though there have been some Hunter Seekers going on, it's just been to the tanks. None of it's been to the air army. There might have been like 1 or 2 to the air army to force them to back away, but realistically you should never get your air army Hunter Seekered unless you're in a direct fight, like we'll see later on, and then it just kind of gets really weird from there. It's a very high stakes game when you have so much gas that's being clumped up between Ravens. So as this game's progressing, Journey, he's still on 5 bases. I would have liked to see him take a 6th base and make some more command centers so that he would have some more money. But he's still in an okay position, well, until now. This is what happens when the air army is out of position. Oh, and here's the Hunter Seeker missile fight. So basically what happens is, my god, that's a lot of damage. But basically you're supposed to Hunter Seeker missile a couple units, and then you're supposed to run away, and then whoever doesn't run away pays dearly. And we see Journey paying dearly, losing his entire Viking force, whereas the Meching Terran player has not really lost any of his momentum with building his air army up. So he's going to be in a good position now with his unit composition. The only thing not going for him is his economy, and we see this 4th base. He just got that gas up mining again, and now he's going to lose it, and now he's even going to be forced to lift off. So even though he has a really good army, the mech player that is, Journey has almost 2 bases ahead of him, which is very, very significant. And no matter how hard the army composition is to beat, you can almost always beat it when you have more money than the opponent. And we see here Journey, he's going to be setting up another siege tank line. These Ravens, they seem to have mostly been targeting siege tanks. It makes sense, again, just to like keep targeting siege tanks when they're sieged up and just kind of chipping away at them. And it also makes sense why Journey made so many factories, so that he could replenish the siege tank count faster, so that he's not gonna straight up die if the other player, if he takes bad engagement, the other player somehow marches across his base, and Journey only has like 2 to 4 tanks versus 4 to 8. We see here he's going to be going for a drop. These are the 2 possible bases that the mech player can take now, and Journey's goal once again is to deny mining at these additional bases for as long as possible, and to just try to shut them down and prevent the mech player from getting a really good economy going. And we see here Journey, he has 1 of the bases secured from the mech player. These Hunter Seeker missiles are going to be doing a lot of damage. It's really, really hard to fight into this kind of an army. Like this is just a very scary sky army, and that was extremely cost efficient for the Terran mech player as well still. So there's not really much you can do except to really take bases and deny bases. The good news for Journey though is that base that he just got wiped out in right over there, that was the Terran player's only other mining base. He's going to be mined out of the rest of his base 35 minutes into the game, and not having a 4th base means he's not going to be mining at all, whereas Journey still has 2 fresh bases with all of their mineral patches still available to him. These Banshees getting really, really annoying. Also, it's important to note that neither player has switched into battle cruisers. Battle cruisers just don't seem to be an answer in anything. They just suck. They're good units, but there's like just a lot better units than battle cruisers to go for. And that is the Raven. But this kind of looks like a lot like in a Villa game where he's playing against a bio player. The only real big times I see a Villa lose is when he messes up on control, or he just simply runs out of money and the other player is like 1 to 2 bases up on him and he's just not able to, like, this mech player, yeah, he has a lot of ravens, but he also has very low energy on his ravens as well. And so if he runs out of energy in a bad spot, then he's not going to be doing too well. His ravens are essentially useless until they have energy. Also, just kind of a miss macro making that Reaper. He's gonna make like 4 more Reapers, and that's because he has his hotkeys on all on one tab. There's the 4 Reapers, and so he pressed R, and he wanted to make Ravens instead of Reapers, but they were selected on the barracks instead of the starport. We see here another sensor tower going up for Journey. He really wants to make sure that the mech player, the sensor tower at this point is more for the Sky Army. Make sure when he's looking away doing something else that he's not going to get his entire army Hunter Seeker missiled. It's still, the mech player still has a very, very scary army. And I think Journey also, he finally has his 6th base up and almost running. I think he would have been in a much better position if he had this, if he was basically 1 more base up right now. This is a good move by him by catching the other Terran player's army out of position like that and segmenting off a chunk of the army, but the Sky Army is also going to clean up the rest of the army. But the saving grace for Journey once again is that this mech player is no longer mining any minerals. So Journey's going to be on 3 bases now. Well, he has 3 bases that are operational. I don't know how good the 4th and 5th are looking in terms of minerals, but this Terran player, the mech player, is going to have almost nothing left. Still, he can't fight against this straight up Skyball with some Banshees and tanks. It's just too hard to deal with, especially if you just have pure bio. So at this point, the mech player has to push out, and he needs to take a really good engagement and win the game with this one last army because he no longer has any economy. And this is kind of the situation where you want to force the mech player to be in, where he feels obligated to push out, because then he's going to be pushing out towards your defender's advantage. So you're going to have the defender's advantage when it comes to Ravens and the Viking Wars and the Hunter Seekers as well. Like, you're going to be able to usually Hunter Seeker first and get a better concave. This is where the battle gets crazy. Both players just kind of Hunter Seeker missiling everything and then also trying to split. Journey loses all of his units, unfortunately. He didn't have quite enough Vikings at the end to clean up everything, and the Banshees, very important part of this Sky unit composition, are going to be able to push him back. And he's like, that probably wasn't a maxed out Terran army for the meching player, but he was still able to take a really good engagement just because of the efficiency of the Hunter Seeker missiles, and I guess also how well he was able to dodge with them. Journey, he was able to get some good Hunter Seeker missile shots off. The other player was too, likewise. It just comes down to a matter of splitting and using your Hunter Seeker missiles, spreading them out efficiently so they kill as much of the army as possible. And now this ground army, or this air army, is doing a ton of damage, but the mech player is going to be forced to GG because he no longer has any minerals, and we see Journey just scanning around and saw that he has no minerals. So yeah, that's, I guess, the answer to stopping a Villa style mech is to just stay ahead of him economically and to starve him out to the point where he is forced to take an engagement outside of his sieged up tanks and turret defense. So yeah, very, very complicated game for a bio tank player, I would say. on a map like Deadwing, I would have liked to see Journey take bases a bit faster so that we could have seen him have a bigger economic advantage, because that's really the advantage that you want to be pushing against a static mech player. We saw the mech player try to do some Hellion run-bys. I guess that could have done some damage, but a planetary really makes it difficult for Hellions to break it down. I don't know how difficult it would be if he turns them into Hellbats though. I will definitely have to figure, or definitely have to what's it called, experiment around with that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, just leave a comment below. And if you have any games that you want me to go over, just leave a link about the game. If you have any topics that you want me to cover, just ask, and I'll just keep my eyes open for a game that comes up, and then I'll cast it, kind of like what I did with this game, and kind of explain what's going on, what your goals should be, what the other person's goals should be, and the general basics of your game plan for how you want to approach the game. Alright, that brings this video to an end, so I will see you guys all on the next video. Take care.